a house in the spring market, you need to be a part of this. You need a coach on your side. And that's exactly what we're here to do. So, over the next 10 weeks, we are going to go over everything you need to know to buy your first house, pay me to buy your second house. We're going to create a guide for you. If you send me a DM, send me an email, I'll send you this guide here for you completely free. No signups, no nothing needed. We're just here trying to give you some education, trying to help you out through the mortgage process. So, what we're talking about today is we're going to create a down payment and closing cost guide so you know everything that you need to know as we go into a down payment. So, we're going to go ahead, share our screen here real quick, and we will jump right into it as we go through this. So, what do we need to know first when you're looking to buy a house? First, what is a down payment? Let's talk about a down payment. So, down payment is the part of the house that you're going to have in equity right away. So, you need to put down a minimum of 5% for your first house. So, let's talk minimum down payments as we're going to buy our house. So, for a house, let's take an example of a $500,000 house. You need to have 5% down on the first $500,000. So, if we're looking at $500,000 house, you need to have $25,000 as that down payment. Now, if we're going over 5% down, if we're going over $500,000, we need to have a little bit more skin in the game. We need to have a little bit more equity in this property. So we need to put 10% down on the remainder of that property. So if we're buying for 600,000, let's use that example. If we're buying for $600,000, we need to have 5% on the first $500,000 and then 10% on the amount above that. So at a $600,000 down payment, or $600,000 purchase, you're going to need to have $25,000 for the first $500,000 and 10% after this. So another $10,000. So we're looking at $35,000 as your minimum down payment on a $600,000 purchase price. Now, if we're getting over that $1.5 million mark, you're going to need to have 20%. We need to have a little bit more skin in the game. We have to go to what's called a conventional mortgage. We can't use a CMHC or a Sagen or a Canada Guarantee mortgage if we're going over that $1.5 million property. So again, we've got the example here of that $600,000 home, $25,000 of the first $500,000 and $10,000 of the next remaining part. So now let's talk about, do we need 5% down? Do we want to go to 20% down? Let's build that in next. So if you have 5% down, my suggestion is buy with what you have, not with what you're hoping to save. If you wait till 20% down, and I know this was a theory that my parents, they harped on me, like, don't pay that CMHC fees, buy the 5% down, use 20% down, don't use 5%. Well, it's great theory, but it's a lot harder to save to get to that 20% down. So let's talk about it here. So if we wait to save 20% down, if you have 500,000 or 5% down on a $600,000 home, so that's actually the $35,000 today that we're going to need on that property, as we used in this example up top here. If you wait 2 to 3 years to save the 20%, so we're getting to $120,000. That same house has probably gone up in value. So that $500,000 house that we were looking at is probably now, or that $600,000 house we were looking at is probably now gone up to $700,000 or maybe even more. So now, instead of needing 120,000, you need an extra 140,000. The challenge is now we've lost out on $100,000 in equity just to try and save that amount of money. If you pay that CMHC premium, pay a little bit extra, you're going to be in a much better situation. You're going to be able to take advantage of that equity as the home grows, as we're going to be able to build it. It's going to put you in a lot better situation. The right move is finding out what works for your budget, and so you're at your comfortable tool. And we're going to show you a couple budgeting tools as we go through here. But first, I want to talk a little bit about closing costs. So this is one that, if you go to the banks, they're going to tell you, and I know I was at the bank for a long time. We used to just say, if you want to buy a house, budget for 1% of the closing costs. Really, there's a lot of different factors that go into buying that first house. Whether you're a first-time home buyer, whether you're buying your second house, you need to know a lot of things here. So the closing costs, they really could range, from as little as 1 to 1.5%, up to as much as 4% of that purchase price, depending on where you're buying. Now, different municipalities are going to have different closing costs, different land transfer taxes. So one thing that you're going to have upfront is what's called a deposit. So that deposit is going to be submitted to the sellers within 24 hours, 48 hours of your offer being accepted. Now, that's going to be a negotiating tool. And really what it does is it shows how serious you are about buying this house. If you're looking to buy a house for $500,000 and maybe you only have, $1,000 for a deposit, your offer doesn't look that great. But if you have $25,000 for that deposit, your offer is going to look a lot better. You're going to look a lot more serious to the sellers and give you a much better chance of getting that property. Now, when we talk closing costs, things that we talk about are legal fees, land transfer taxes, title insurance, property insurance, and tax adjustments. We're going to walk you through an example once we go to the next page here of what all of these look like. Um, what we can use for some of these down payments is things like a home buyer's plan, a first time home buyer savings account, gifts from family and friends, right? So if you're looking to buy a house, there's a lot of opportunities for that down payment. We get a lot, using that gift from parents or buying with parents. Maybe let the parents have a little bit of skin in the game. Let them grow in equity as we continue to go. Co-buy with family and friends. Build a home ownership, a cohabitation agreement with lawyers. We have great partners that can help you build out that cohabitation agreement so you can buy not just with, you don't need to fall in love to buy a house. Buy with family, buy with friends. It makes a lot different. And there's some different provincial and municipal down payment assistance programs that we have access to that we can share with you. Now, let's talk about what does buying your first house look like. What we like to do is we build out this custom budget for every single property that you are going to look at. Now, we have some different options. We're just showing here an amortization of 20 years. We do have the opportunity now for a first-time home buyer to go out to those 30 years. But what we're looking at here is a $500,000 down payment. And let's walk through here of a 5% down. And we're using the 5-year fix as an example. So a $500,000 purchase. The minimum down payment that you need is $25,000. Again, we put the deposit at $5,000, and your total CMHC premium or Sagen premium is going to be $19,000. Now, don't worry, this cost is rolled right into the cost of your mortgage, meaning your entire mortgage is going to be $494,000. Now, let's break down those closing costs for a first-time home buyer. So our legal fees, and these are all estimates. We've got an estimate of $1,800 on your legal fees. Taxes on those legal fees, so we do have to pay taxes, so we're at $234. Land transfer taxes in Ontario, so on a $500,000 house, you get a $4,000 rebate on those land transfer taxes. Now, if we're not a first-time home buyer, we'll put that in there. You can see here your land transfer taxes are going to be $64.75. If we are a first-time home buyer, we get that rebate. We've got taxes on mortgage insurance. So this $19,000 does have to pay. You do have to pay taxes on that. So there's an extra $1,500 that needs to be paid up front. We roll the $19,000 into the property, but you do have to pay that up front. And then the last thing is adjustments and disbursements on closing with the lawyer. So this is another estimate. This is things like an adjustment would be if the sellers have already paid maybe some of the utilities, they've already paid taxes in advance. Maybe they've already paid 3, 4, 5 months in advance of taxes. You have to pay them back for the time that you are going to live there. They don't pay the taxes for when you live there. So we like to budget that in, maybe estimate a little bit high. That way we can work our way down after it comes. So your total closing costs that are going to be due 1 week in advance of your closing are going to be $27,529. Again, that's in addition to your $5,000 you've already put as a down payment, as a deposit. That does go towards your down payment. But once we factor in all of these costs, the total amount that you need to have saved, we're looking at about $32,000. $32,529. Now, what does this look on monthly payments? So your monthly payments are going to be $25.95.86. We want to bring in your monthly property taxes. So we've got property taxes that are going to come. Again, this is an estimate. And if you have a property you're interested in, we can create this out as a custom budget just for you. So you know exactly what you're looking for and what the costs are going to be. Meaning your total your total monthly estimate is going to be $28.87. Now, one thing we did include here is rental income. If you're looking at properties that maybe have a basement apartment or a rental suite, maybe an in-law suite, this is a great way to offset some of those costs and have a tenant help pay for you. If you're buying that first house, this is a great opportunity to have a tenant help offset some of the costs. If you get in, $1,200 in rent for a basement apartment, you can see that's going to take a big chunk out of your payment. Now, the big thing we have down here, we have a partner that helps us out with these CMHC rebates. So if your house is looking like, if it will pass a green energy audit, and we have a partner that will look at these houses even before you buy it and give you an idea, is this going to qualify or not? And he can say pretty certainly if this is going to be a house that's likely to pass or likely to fail. If he says it's going to pass and he comes out and does that inspection and it fails, the whole inspection is completely free. It doesn't cost you a dime. Now, if it does pass, you can see here, you're getting $4,700 back about 2 to 3 weeks after the inspection is done. So you're probably looking 5 or 6 weeks after you close on this house. You're going to get a check back for just under $5,000 on a $500,000 purchase price. Works out really, really good, and our clients absolutely love it. It's one of the most underutilized programs that we have. Now, let's jump back in. Let's talk about budgeting. So I think budgeting is really, really important. And, we don't want, there's a lot of houses that sometimes get underwater. We're seeing a little bit where, hey, I need to sell my house for this much money, right? If you want a smart budgeting tool before you buy, you need to know your monthly budget and what it's going to cost. So we have a really great tool that will break down all of your budget, all of your wants, all of your needs, your total expenses, how to save for that down payment. So if you're looking to save your down payment, you need to break everything into a budget. The better budget you have, the better success you're going to have for saving for that down payment. Now, if you want extra tips or extra assistance, we've got some great financial planners that we can refer you to that can help you build out this budget, help you stay on track. Sometimes it means we got to be a little bit lean, a little few, less nights out, less coffee, less, all of those extra expenses that really start to add up. The more we can stay away from those, put these into a wants versus needs, we're going to help you get into that first house a lot sooner than a lot sooner than you would before. Now, one question we always get is CMHC. So let's talk about that CMHC insurance and that CMHC rebate. What is it and what does it cover? So if you are putting less than 20% down, you have to pay CMHC insurance. And what this does is this protects the bank and it protects the lenders and it protects our housing market. So what the CMHC premium is going to do is it's going to guarantee your house. It gets you a little bit of a discount on your mortgage interest rate, but what it does is it does help the housing market. So make sure that CMHC puts in a lot of checks and balances to make sure that if you're buying a house with less than 20%, we're going to make sure that the housing market is going to stay stable. One of the problems, if you can remember back to 2008, one of the challenges that the US housing market got into was they had people buying for 100% loan to value, 120% loan to value. And there were no checks and balances in there to make sure that the value of the houses were what they were looking at. So it is required to be added to your mortgage. And like I said, we do offer that risk-free energy audit. So you can get 25% of those fees back. That's what we've got. That's our webinar for week one. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat. One of the questions that we always get is about borrowed funds. How can we use a borrowed funds or gifted funds for your down payment? And the big one is borrowed funds and gifted funds are a little bit different, but can you use borrowed funds? Yes, you can, but you do need to be able to qualify to carry all of those debts. So if you're going to take this money off of a line of credit, we need to make sure that you qualify to hold the debt to make the repayments on the borrowed funds and to be able to make payments on your mortgage. How does my down payment affect the size of my mortgage and my mortgage terms? So again, this is different for everybody. So if the bigger the down payment you're putting down, the less you're going to have to pay, the less your mortgage amount is going to be. What we always do want to suggest is, the bigger your mortgage is, we want to make sure that you're set up with a financial planner. Again, we want to get into those home ownership budgeting, right? If you've got a house now, you've got extra costs, you have to pay those repair bills. You can't just call a landlord. We want to make sure you're set up for success. So we set you up with a financial planner. We've got some great partners that we partner with to help make sure that, you're not calling us back a couple of weeks later saying, I can't make my payments. Things are just getting more and more expensive. We want to make sure that you're set up for success. Thanks for joining my webinar. This is week one. Next week, we're talking credit scores. If you want to learn more about credit scores, jump on that webinar. Again, no sign up, nothing needed. If you want a copy of this PDF here of down payment and your closing guide, give me a call, send me your information, and away we go. Thanks, and we'll talk next week. Yellow.